welcome everyone. Most of you know me, I'm Kathy Henrich. I lead the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition, and I am very excited to be here with all of you today to celebrate our 5-year anniversary as a nonprofit here in the region. And as I look across the room, there are so many familiar faces, and I'm so excited that you're here to help us celebrate, because it's this connectivity that makes a difference as we go forward. But so before we get started, or as we get started though, I'd really like to bring up Northwestern Mutual, Christian Mitchell. Christian Mitchell is the Executive Vice President, Chief Data Officer, and Chief Information Officer here at Northwestern Mutual. We just had a great dialogue around the growth of tech here at Northwestern Mutual and the criticality of that to your organization. So it's with great honor that I'm able to introduce you here today.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's so wonderful to welcome you to the Northwestern Mutual campus and to be with you to celebrate this incredible milestone anniversary of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. As Kathy mentioned, my name is Christian Mitchell, Chief Digital and Information Officer for Northwestern Mutual, and it's my honor, it's my privilege to offer a few comments ahead of the incredible program that you have today. So what I'd like to do first and foremost is honor Kathy. We're so appreciative of her. We're so appreciative of her leadership, her partnering, her energy, everything that she's built. On behalf of Northwestern Mutual and its leadership team, just want to extend our deep gratitude to you. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to all of you for being here today. It's so great to see so many leaders, community leaders, nonprofit, industry, otherwise. It's wonderful to be gathered together. And being together, it gives us this opportunity to think about and reflect on the inception and the track record of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. Now, at Northwestern Mutual, we're really focused on creating an incredible tech community here in our region. We've worked on that for many years. We want to have the right talent, entrepreneurs, funding, everything that's part of a rich ecosystem. And in pursuit of that, we often partner. We partner with individuals, we partner with organizations, and that spirit of partnership and collaboration we've certainly extended to the Milwaukee Tech Hub. And a few years ago, we had this insight that if we wanted to create an incredible community, if we wanted it to be rich and vibrant and growing, it needed to be more inclusive. It needed to be more diverse. We needed to create a situation such that anyone could see themselves, could see a future, could see a career in technology. And we recognized that we weren't going to be able to do that alone, that we were going to need partners, we were going to need like-minded individuals to help us realize this vision. And it's from there that our partnership and support of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition came. And we love this mission, this idea of creating an inclusive, diverse, vibrant, growing, deep tech community here in our region. And it's something that we feel strongly about, and it actually has some resonance with our mission as a company too. So we exist to help our clients be better off financially. We do that through advisors, we do that through financial planning, and importantly, we do that through technology as well. Technology is a huge part of us discharging this vision, of us realizing that the ideal of bringing financial security to our clients. Whether that is an experience in a mobile app so our clients can see a really easy, intuitive snapshot of their financial picture, or it's the whole suite of tools that we provide our advisors such that they can be more productive or they can meet with new clients, more clients. Technology is a huge part of our past, present, and future. So in conclusion, I would just offer the observation, my conviction that we all have a huge stake in making sure that Milwaukee is a wonderful place for tech talent, all types of tech talent. Since its inception, since the support of John Schlifsky at its beginning, the Milwaukee Tech Hub has been an incredible part of bringing that to fruition. So again, thank you for being here. It's so wonderful to welcome you to Northwestern Mutual. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I will pass the time back to Kathy.
Thank you so much. All right. So I'm thrilled to be able to really be here today and really kind of tell the story of our origin, our why, and what progress we have made as a result over the last 5 years. And I think what Christian said was really great, because I was looking through, as I was getting prepared for this, we started working, to collect some pictures, et cetera, from our origins. And I came across an article that was in Chief Executive magazine in 2017. And in it, John Schlifsky was quoted as saying, when they used to recruit, they'd recruit based on two things, the company and the job. But now that they're recruiting people, it's more about the ecosystem that surrounds the talent. And that was John back in 2017 that started to get into our why we exist. And from that point in time, a small team was created here at Northwestern Mutual to kind of incubate a concept of what a tech hub might be. And they started to convene and educate and try to figure out where the gaps were so that those could start to be filled. Things like Hour of Tech came out of that. And John personally started to recruit other companies into the mission to help us build this collective group working together. So over those 5 years, though, it's been an interesting journey. So we were announced back in fall of 2019 as the formation as a formal nonprofit. And from that time, one of the first things was to set out to hire a CEO. And I joined at the very end of January of 2020, 6 weeks before the world shut down for COVID. But in some ways, that was actually a good thing because everybody was willing to talk. Things were broken, and we could kind of try to fill that gap. And so we were really fortunate to meet a lot of organizations here in the region and be able to kind of look at a vision of what it might look like if we started working together to build a collective tech ecosystem here in Wisconsin and Milwaukee. And we started some initial programs. We had tons of committee meetings. Back then, there were 6 committees, each running every 2 weeks. And we used it as an opportunity, though, to collect voices from our community, to understand what was really going on, what was going well, but where were the gaps, and what exactly would help us fill those gaps. That allowed us to build some initial programs, some of which worked, some of which we didn't do so well, and we failed forward and worked on the next thing. And that's okay, and I think it's a part of the journey. And then we started to scale those programs. But along the way, one of the things we figured out, it wasn't just the programs that were mattering. It wasn't the fact that, a lot of people were coming out to, get together. It was actually the connections that were being created that was so interesting. In fact, those connections started to spawn new things in the community that we would have never anticipated. All great outcomes of that collaboration. And that allowed us to start on a journey towards really creating transformational change here in the region. And kind of concurrent to that, and we'll have a great conversation today with Mark Muro, who's joining us from Brookings, there were some federal competitions that came out, the tech hubs, the engines, et cetera, that allowed us to take and build on those relationships that we had built over the last several years and convene people and work together to be able to secure some of that federal funding to act as an igniter here in the region. And today, I think, you're here and you can feel it, right? We now have a collective organization. And while I'm still introducing people to one another, there's a lot less of that. You're now introducing each other to one another as well. And we're a much more connected ecosystem that has a collective that has the power to create momentum and is creating momentum here in the region. But it's only through our support of our members. We're very fortunate to have 135 organizations working with us. And it's both the financial support that matters and the actual engagement, the volunteering, the providing of ideas, the working together on various projects that's really made a huge difference. And whether it's big or small, I know all of us have worked together in some way. And so over those 5 years, we've continued to refine and formalize the mission in a way that I think today we feel all really great about. I'm very fortunate to have a very supportive board that has worked together with us over the last 5 years to continue to refine the strategy, to create catalytic change here in the region that's going to continue to drive a vibrant ecosystem. And I remember our first meeting, Molly's in front here, and she kept going, economic development, jobs. And it is about that. It's because we are now a tech-powered economy that we're able to move forward. And it's interesting, you know, it's like everybody wants to say, okay, so what do we need to do? And he wants it to be simple. And it was funny, we reiterated this last night at dinner with Mark. It's like there is no silver bullet. It takes a lot of things happening concurrently to make this work. We have to be able to attract, we need to be attractive to our tech talent, to be able to come here, stay here, grow here, et cetera. And tech businesses, and be able to bring those here to the region. We need to build diverse tech talent. So when we started, unemployment rate in tech was about 1.5%. There was no way we were going to scale in a way that fast enough unless we also built talent here in the region. And then the third thing is we had to scale our innovation economy as well in our ecosystem. Because as John said in that initial quote, they want to come to a place that they know that they can plug into, both in the startup world, but also in continuing to grow their skills and capabilities here in the region. So what's happened? We took and we tried to aggregate some big numbers and see what's happened. So we did some research early on in our journey that said, why do people come to a tech region? And what we found is they got quality of life, cost of living. That they understood. But what people really wanted is to know that they were going into an ecosystem where there were lots of jobs, where they could continue to grow, where they could work on problems that matter with advanced technologies in conjunction with diverse teams. That's what people wanted. And so we knew we had to tell our story differently here as a region. And as part of that, we built a website called choosemketech.org. We now have 75,000 people a year checking us out, figuring out what's here in Milwaukee. Great, based on the great work of Gwen, and I don't know, I see her in the back. We've now aggregated jobs on that platform. We've aggregated events on that platform. People can see that being here in Milwaukee and in Southeast Wisconsin is exciting. There's a lot going on. We have over 850 jobs that are posted there every month. And we started to tell a lot of stories, and over 650 stories being told about our region, including the Innovate project that a lot of you and some of you have participated in, which is really a collection of stories that will continue to fuel our digital marketing and content campaigns going forward. And if you don't know about that, ask any of my team, and we will do that, and we'll be able to do that. But all of that has started to yield benefits. We were acknowledged this year in May as the #2 city in the country for remote tech employees. So if you want a tech career and you have flexibility, here is the place to be. And I think we can all be really proud of that fact. But the other one here around talent, of building that talent, we knew that it had to start early, so we do have an exposure program. In fact, Hour of Tech goes on in case anybody wants to volunteer in December again. Over 100,000 hours have been donated by our community into the schools to expose students to tech occupations, tech careers, and various things that they can do. We started to bring in more talent into the tech pipeline through Fuse, multidisciplinary program here in the region that focuses on AI and prepares them for internships in our companies. And we started to realize we also needed to make sure we were continuing to skill people as well. And we've helped over 270 people get into tech occupations here in the region. But you can't forget about this innovation economy as well. And I remember our very first week, 4M was started. Joe Peschel was leading it along with, I did see Maggie somewhere earlier. That allowed us to start building an entry door into a startup ecosystem that would allow people to explore ideas. And we had tons of mentorship. I mean, I love this program because it's like half, I do my work, but about half of it's mentorship and getting you connected to the region. And we've now had 325 founders go through that. We've been able to provide over $650,000 in loans and now grants and now revolving loans as well into that community to help those individuals get started. And in addition to that, it's not only about the startup, but it's also about what we can help our companies do. And so this year, in the last year, we've done a ton around AI, not surprisingly. I don't know if we can all go to an event and not talk about AI, but there's 750 or 775, it keeps growing, that are now invested in that community and participating and sharing their knowledge and sharing their experiences so that we can all grow through that and all learn through that experience. But in addition to that, we've helped over 40 businesses this year help build out product roadmaps or build out their roadmaps around AI, whether that's a startup with the AI roadmap or whether that's an established business participating in a workshop around for our small and medium-sized manufacturers. So there's been a lot of momentum that's been created. But I will say the one thing that I think is maybe surprising to us is how these all fit together. So all of a sudden, we started noticing that we had few students that were going into the 4M program. And we had 4M founders that were able to take advantage of grants to help them bring on apprenticeships. I see Grace in the front. And so those kinds of stories allowed us to start connecting. But even more so, it's that collection of that activity that started to attract also investment. And I think we have some really exciting things that we can now feel the momentum here in the region, whether that is from industry. Obviously, Microsoft, I know Bala's here, is a huge new player here in the region, investing billions into the region, but it's also Fiserv and Milwaukee Tool and Rockwell and the others that have continued to grow here. We've invested in skilling programs, both at our post-secondary institutions as well as into non-traditional talent pipelines. There's been a huge growth in VC here in the region, over $210 million that's been raised over the last 5 years in new VC firms. And in fact, I think, and that's before all of you saw that there was a new VC announced yesterday by Giannis. So that's an exciting new development here in the region as well. But that's also being invested here. So the amount of investment per year into local startups is now about twice what it used to be. And, that has all allowed us to start attracting federal funds as well. So everybody's aware of the big BioHealth Tech Hub that Muro will talk about today, and I saw Mike in the back. So we also have the ability to continue to grow in biohealth, energy and water. Dean's here and was able to secure an NSF engine that we participated in. Skills to build with Employ Milwaukee. So all of these investments are coming, and all of those now are being supported also by new organizations that didn't exist 5 years ago. And so I think all of this collectively is helping us as a region. So I'm going to do audience participation now, and I hope this works. So all that stuff that we just said, whether you were part of a committee, whether you're a member, whether you've taken advantage of a program, have been able to secure a grant, if you were participating in securing any of these investments here to the region, I'd like you to stand up. Look around. This is the power. And I think what's really interesting is What I find more interesting is this is a fraction of what's going on here. A fraction. The number of people I've heard from that wish they could be here, but it is the day before deer season. So, I get it. But you can all sit down. And if you didn't stand up, that's okay too. You're now here, and you have an opportunity to participate in this ecosystem going forward. And we're really excited to welcome you here today. So, with all of you participating, I have I think we are in a great place, 2025 and beyond, to really look at how we continue to power our future here as in Milwaukee through tech. And so it is through that I am really excited to be able to bring up our main guest. And so Mark Muro came to us. He is the senior fellow at Brookings Institute. And he works in research around the interplay of technology, people, and place. I think I posted on LinkedIn that I was awestruck in my first meeting with him. And that is absolutely true. Because his research has gone on to inspire billions of investment by our federal government into place-based economic development. And so it's really exciting, but it's funny how this came about, is that I was having a conversation with our director of content, who also has a camera with him today, Antonio, way back in about March, and he was kind of peppering me on questions around what's happening with, the story of MKE Tech Hub. And it occurred to me that, this timeline almost matches, right? We're 5 years, it's 5 years since the original report was made. And that original report was titled The Case for Growth Centers, How to Spread Innovation, Tech Innovation Across America. And so you can come right up, Mark. We are gonna have a conversation with Mark. And I'm going to start it, but we are really encourage you to also ask questions as well. Have a seat.
Great.
And, it's really exciting about what we can learn, both, where things have come from and what we can learn going forward. So thanks so much for coming in from DC to be with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you. It's a total pleasure, it really is. This isn't it isn't a platitude, because the things going on in Wisconsin truly were some of the inspiration of the work we did that had all kinds of good, results. But we were looking at what was going on in Madison. We were looking at the Water Council here, looking at other technology-based developments across the state, and Titletown. All of these things are pointing in a certain direction, so it's really exciting to be here, and I'm a big admirer of what's going on here and in the state, in Milwaukee, and with the organization. So thanks for having me in.
Yeah, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. So tell me a little bit more background. What kind of prompted the research back in 2019? What kind of conditions made it so that you wanted to look into this topic?
Well, frankly, it was a lot about the way the country and regions were recovering from the financial crisis. Most regional economies in the nation didn't perform that well coming out of it. The nation didn't perform that great. I follow tech ecosystems, and I was pretty shocked by the pretty slow recovery that most places were experiencing. We kept measuring metro by metro growth of digital services. It's something we look at. It's just an interesting capstone way of capturing a lot of things that people here are interested in. What did we see? We kept seeing incredible growth in employment and output in a few coastal, what I call superstar cities: San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, New York. The usual suspects. We're all tired of hearing the litany about their fast growth, but we were seeing huge growth in these places around digital services, and basically drift in most other places. Even really pretty formidable places, we're getting kind of tepid growth in this on this measure, and really we're going sideways. And so I began to get the idea that we were seeing an incredibly sharp divide in this country. It wasn't just that, oh, it's too bad most places aren't doing that great. You know, they're poking along, but it's nothing to write home about. It's, in fact, they're going sideways, and a short list of places were, in fact, pulling away. That seemed extremely worrisome. We weren't converging. You know how the economic idea that if we just keep growing, we'll all sort of converge to a general level of prosperity. We weren't seeing that, and people in the Midwest certainly knew that. We knew and saw that you all were diverging, that places were pulling away. We don't think that's a great way to run a railroad. We think it leads to, unevenness. We think it leads to frustration. Lots of reasons. But we saw this divergence, and we at Brookings Metro just said with some of our partners, this is not a little problem, this is a big problem. So we jumped on this, went to work with my partner, Rob Atkinson at ITIF, a very good technology-oriented think tank. We wanted to set out to lay out the problem, say why it's a problem, remember to say that, and then describe what might be done about it. And that's usually where a lot of efforts kind of fade off. And our idea was to create the growth centers that you mentioned, which would be, regional hubs that we can talk about. But it was essentially to push back, at least have an experiment about what we might do to try to change that unevenness. So, that's basically how we got started on this.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more. Like I said, I was awestruck, and I am, because a lot of times research sits on a shelf, right, if we're honest about it. So what's happened since? I think it's inspired a lot.
Yeah, and for anybody who does what I do, doing public policy, it was sort of a once in a decade kind of thing, very, very exciting to us. But basically the idea really caught on. People liked our idea of launching big, serious efforts to try to not do away with those superstar places, but let's create some places that have a lot of promise in other regions and make sure they have a shot, right? So we found regional leaders in tech, especially in the heartland, really responded very positively to this idea. And frankly, some of the same people that might have been skeptical of trying to make nudge the map said, we're all in. This decade has been very tough in the Midwest, for instance, and even parts of the Southeast, were concerned. So, and then Congress got interested. Then Representative Gallagher was one of the heavyweight group of sponsors. So again, there's a Wisconsin lineage here. And he worked with Senator Schumer and Senator Todd Young of Indiana, created something called the Endless Frontier Act, which was an initial, shot at this kind of concept. And eventually the concept, with more and more detail, gained real traction on the Hill and in Washington, and the CHIPS and Science Act. Ultimately, the 117th Congress embraced the hubs as a $10 billion 5-year anchor of the end science part of the CHIPS and Science bill. And eventually awards were made of 12 regions, and lo and behold, Wisconsin MKE Tech Hub, led by BioForward Wisconsin, was one. So I'm not just talking to say that you can see that Wisconsin was intimately at the center of the idea, and then what happened. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, you just wrote a report in July kind of recapping kind of the what happened, et cetera. And you're starting to see people get off the blocks, right? What are you seeing relative to, kind of what's working, where are the challenges, et cetera, as we go into this?
Yeah, so we don't have, the hubs are just being established now, really. Mm-hmm. We don't have specific outcomes yet. I would say, in general, the startups of these hubs are going quite well. like much better than people thought they might, because there's always the suspicion that if you give too much autonomy to regions, they're going to mess it up. In fact, regions, organizations like this have been ready, have been becoming more sophisticated, and I would trust them for implementation in many respects. But we could talk. One way to talk about how this idea works is to talk about more established places that also once were going sideways and are now not. I would think of the Research Triangle in North Carolina, or frankly, what's been going on around the University in Madison, are just examples of places that found ways to get onto a more inclusive, fast-growing, important, globally significant growth trajectory. Research Triangle, world-class science has engaged with serious commercialization, a lot of interaction of the state, regions, universities. That's something we're going to talk about. Emergence of the hub is just extremely intentional there over time. I think that's one of the Another one is the emergence of pharma and biomanufacturing in central Indiana, that 25 years ago was, not peripheral, but was a very ordinary cluster. And they used strong data, strong focus over time, and a strong involvement of big corporations, modest-sized corporations, and a big endowment there. So all those things coming together. So there's no one way to do this, but we do know that regions can get onto a different trajectory. The hubs and all these ideas have been attempts to have some experiments to help nudge more places onto a faster growth trajectory. So, you asked about some of the, what has gone well. I mean, I think aspirations have been lifted in many places, and that's not going to go away. The genie's out of the bottle, Yeah. And places are simply not going to accept slow growth in the same way. They're going to want to see, what are we doing to transform ourselves? Even if it's not always working, what are we trying to do here? I think the challenges have been around struggling with true inclusive coalition building, making sure that coalition works, can make tough decisions, can do it with speed. I think that's one of the things that we see variance in the initial efforts. Some places doing it well, others struggling a little bit. And then rallying the community. How do you mobilize over time? I think that's a mixed challenge. So those are some of the things. How do you have a call to action and then make it work over time?
Yeah, it's interesting. You and I were talking last night, and I call it a forcing function, but whether it's good
forcing
or not,
is part
right?
of it, yeah.
But the national competitions really did accelerate regions. It helped in being able to prioritize and create focus, but also the collaboration. There has to be a reason for collaboration, and I know it's still one of the challenges between organizations. But any guidance, counsel?
So collaboration is, I think it's part of the human makeup. It's also an unnatural act at the same time for some organizations. And I think these challenges in which, it's a top-down challenge, but it's also to call out bottom-up activity, organizing, strategy. And that has been really powerful. I think that collaboration has been recognized in the last, couple decades as central, and it's because of the nature of technology economies that are based on huge networks. They're about network returns, and quick collaboration to include local economies into national and global economies. So, a vibrant cluster with collaboration helps individual firms source talent, IP, suppliers. I think you were talking about how some of the functions of ecosystem. Ecosystem is all about collaboration. So I see regions become then accelerators through their collaboration. It's a region-wide enormous accelerator if you do it right. You can see this in the Tech Hub's solicitation in its challenge to places. Collaboration wasn't a nice thing that you would just put a paragraph in. It was required. You had to demonstrate your plan for collaboration. And I think that it's been extremely important that those values have been elevated. Things that regional economic development people know are not just nice to do or something to talk about, they're required. They're now part of delivery, So I think that's been very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. We won the BioHealth Tech Hub here in Wisconsin, a huge win, $49 million coming from the federal government. We also won a planning grant around energy and water, and then also have competed for some around smart manufacturing, et cetera. How does a region or a state kind of do multiples of these at once? Like, any guidance?
Like to make sure that they're synergistic.
Yeah, synergistic.
So, but it's true. It could be. I think one thing that's important is that multiple challenges seem to be channeling some of the same kind of ideas, in some ways. So I think that they're not, one is from Mars and the other's from Venus. There is sort of a parallelism. But the thing I think is important is light touch, but real cross-sectional governance flows. Touches. Some of them there should be interactions from personnel across both. So these things know what the other is doing. Exchange of data is important. And so, well, I would say don't force linkages, though. It has to be about authentic adjacency and overlap and synergy, And so I think putting yourself in a position to have that exchange and the right hand knowing what the left hand is doing, not forcing things, but to be alert. So that's the way I would see it.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I think we started to see that. In fact, you saw kind of a core group that was working together on.
It would be a bad sign if there was no overlap in the people involved in these things.
Yep, agreed.
I don't know. I think there still could be virtue and it could be beneficial, and maybe it's having more irons in the fire, but I do think some kind of loose interaction is really important.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. I think you also have written around AI and the superstar cities around AI, and there's kind of an overlap here with the tech hubs as well.
Quick product placement, future work this winter on the geography of AI is coming from us, and it's going to show a lot of intense variation.
Yeah, so how does that affect us? How do we accelerate artificial intelligence here in order to make sure that these hubs continue to grow?
Yeah, some of it is, this is clearly a cross-cutting, ubiquitous, general-purpose technology. So it can't be approached as, our narrow AI effort. It has to be a pervasive effort. I would say, like your organization, your region have to simply center AI as a way it is going to compete. That's the way I see it, because it applies to almost every single activity. The stage we're at prizes now most above all talent and skills and innovation. We're still at an early stage with this thing. Over the next few years, we're going to see more focus on adoption, which is going to require more cash, more investment, and broader impact kinds of solutions. But I do think there's no substitute now for what's happening in the university, what are the talent needs of the companies you have, and what are the important talent mixes. I think that's really central.
Yeah, we were talking last night.
Yeah.
You know, one of the advantages we have is the concentration of universities here as well. So I think one thing that's on everybody's mind is you've been busy over the last couple of weeks,
Yeah.
post-election,
Yeah.
kind of figuring out kind of the what's next. So advice that you might have for all of us in the what's next.
Let's see. Let me kind of. I think clearly, the election introduces uncertainty for everything. Talk in D.C. is swinging towards austerity on the one hand. You know, Elon Musk is talking about slashing $2 billion from the budget. You know, that could be unhelpful. And for that matter, you know, the conservative Project 2025 agenda talks about deallocating the EDA, which wouldn't be great for the kind of supportive administrative support from Washington some of these organizations, you know, these hubs are going to need. But that said, I don't see fatal headwinds for this approach. The first thing is the lineage here is deeply bipartisan. Can't underestimate. 17 Republican senators voted for the endless, the first iteration of this kind of thinking. These small state Republicans really resonated with the concern about the divide between the coast and the heartland. So, you know, we can maybe overstate that, but this is not some wacky, idea that didn't have and doesn't have a lot of resonance, especially across the middle of the country. So I think that's one thing to talk about. I think the real, and I think that is especially going to focus around the extent to which efforts are tied to the China competition, which is something that on both sides of the aisle is of concern. I think AI is going to come back here and with further investment in these kinds of approaches. And then meanwhile, I think there are Republican governors and a lot of Republican leaders in places that like what's going on. So those are a few signals of possible, optimism about where these programs are going to go. But it's going to be lean years, no doubt. And we should talk a little about what I call the sustainability challenge. Great, you won a couple big federal grants. Okay, what now? It's basically on you. Still, you have a big investment has been made. That is not intended as an ongoing subsidy for growth of technology in your region over the next decade. Mostly, it's on you to sustain what has been started and to build out that. And that's going to, I think, and we should talk about this, it's going to require, I think, unprecedented commitment from your state government, from your universities, from corporate and philanthropic actors. If you really have the conviction about the strategies that have been developed here, which I think, you should have, then you've got to have conviction about delivery, right? This is a national strategy that is being delivered by regions. So I think so. Some uncertainty, important opportunities here. This isn't going away, but there's more focus on what regions can do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So we're going to open it up to questions here. I know Joe is going to get some of the mics.
Okay.
So Any questions that anybody might have? I see one over here. Oh boy, we have lots of them. So
You're gonna make me run? Okay.
that's a good sign, I guess.
This is a catch box, so I'm gonna toss it. That's all right? All right.
All right. Hi, Mark. Thank you for being here. As a person that's doing research and is based out of DC, I was curious on how you've noticed this skill gap that's arisen since the launch of AI, essentially. And I wanted to know what was your advice with the different regions, how they could actually play a part in making sure that gap is closed.
I can't quite hear.
The question was, there's been a skills gap around AI. How do we start to close that skills gap?
Yeah, so it absolutely is true, especially the design end, is still a pretty rarefied set of data, a set of skill sets. You're fortunate that you have some leading, university assets here. And to the extent you are a place that can attract, technology workers from anywhere, such as that statistic you showed hinted at, those are important. But you're going to have to scale up. There may be things that need to be shut down or shrunk in the university to allow increased focus on this general purpose technology. The issue is, I think, the early stage design work. I think you'll have to then use other approaches to be able to scale technology knowledge that is more for adoption, which will ultimately be really important here. So that will be a different kind of all hands on deck that will involve even community colleges as well as the universities. But good question. I mean, I don't think anybody has an answer to this. And that, there are still limited number of, cut rate, leading edge, professionals in this space. Yeah.
I love this catch box, by the way. This thing is great. Mark, thanks for being here. Kathy, always a pleasure. My question is around the rural communities. High agriculture concentration, high innovation, high and early tech adoption tends to be the case. What's your thought on bringing them into these coalitions when distance and time becomes an issue?
Yeah, great question. So first, the significance of rural is indicated that several of even the tech hubs, one went to Montana to work on particular. So that has always been a central concern. And you're right, it's the most extreme expression of the superstars versus everybody else. I mean, you and I know that rural spaces are dealing with extreme transition and in some cases true distress. So I think we need a large additional kind of innovation program for rural America, and the USDA has one that's like Rural Partners that is sort of a start in that direction. Several of the tech hubs. Recompete is a federal effort that's trying to look at truly distressed places. So that's one thing. But the other, I think, approach is making sure that, and it may need to happen without federal guidance, is that for hubs and other kinds of efforts to truly incorporate rural and at minimum near urban rural areas in these, literally. And we have some examples. In Fargo, North Dakota is a small town rural context, but I think it's just the whole point here is to diffuse growth into more places. So I would say, any hub should really be thinking, what is our whole of state, rural challenge? And it's also going to be important politically. I mean,
Yeah, you want to mention the report that you sent me around the GDP and what elected president?
Which one?
The county breakdown for the election.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, the red-blue divide in election outcomes is heavily oriented. It's not really news towards, again, something like 400 big blue technology-dominated coastal and, and just big metro areas, and then thousands of small town and rural places that are voting differently, don't see themselves in, the existing technology economy of America. And I'm really worried about that. I mean, I think we can all agree that innovation and technology is, central to the future of America. But what if most people don't see themselves as particularly well represented in that for one way or another? We're not going to show up for it. There isn't going to be a consensus around innovation if we don't watch it. So, which is one of the rationales or motivations of the work we've done.
Yeah. Other questions? Go ahead, Buckley.
So I'm Buckley Brinkman with the Wisconsin MEP. I'm interested now in driving this to Wisconsin because it seems like in reading your report, the original report, and then looking at Wisconsin, we're a bit of a microcosm. And then a huge part of our economy is still anchored in traditional businesses, agriculture and manufacturing. What are the things when you're talking about those concepts we should be thinking about here when we have that traditional base and that traditional strength and moving that into the future?
So first, successful traditional economic activity is going to be becoming more and more digital and innovation oriented and AI driven. And if it doesn't, it's not going to be around. It's not really going to be, truly viable and competitive. I think there's a tremendous opportunity right now with the relocalization of manufacturing into traditional manufacturing spaces, but it's not your grandparents' manufacturing. And if it's successful in the United States, it's going to be an extremely high-tech, AI-oriented activity. You know that better than anyone here with Rockwell, for instance. So, that's my answer, is that all of these traditional verticals have to be reinvented. And if they're not, at this point, working on that, they're not going to be around,
Awesome. I think we can take one more question. Any others?
I see you. I'm coming. I'm not going to launch it over all these people.
Thanks. Anthony DeCruz from HSA Bank. Mark, thanks for being here. Kathy, congratulations on 5 years. So I guess two-part question. The first, all the great work that Kathy and the team have done and shared, but it still feels like we're still in a little bit of the startup phase of what we're doing here. So interested, Mark, in your thoughts on what should we as a region here really be focused on to make sure that this continues to grow and to sustain the growth that we have. And then kind of linked to that, you talked a lot about collaboration, but also interested in your thoughts of how do the various tech hubs around the country avoid competing against each other?
Interesting. Yeah. Can you interpret that?
Oh, sorry.
I can't quite hear it that well.
The first one was what we should be thinking about that we're still a growing tech region, and what do we need to be thinking about in order to continue that growth. And the second was how to avoid competition between tech hubs across the country.
Yeah. So some competition is valuable, right? The idea is to make investments in places and get out of the way by and large and have them compete with some degree of support from the nation from here and there, but basically to get onto a self-sustaining, growth trajectory. This isn't about a government growth trajectory. This is about, bottom up, competition-driven, viable competition, right? And growth. So I see competition as really important. But it's true, the awards don't seem to overlap too much. So there aren't like two states next to each other, duking it out. So I'm not too worried about the competition piece. What was the other portion?
What should we be thinking about going forward?
To me, like issue 1, 2, and 3 is that sustainability challenge I mentioned. Again, great, you won a nice award. That's, love it. But it is up to you now to make sure that this effort has the right degree of mobilization, the right degree of capital, right? Are large, significant companies that are consumers of the innovation participating? What are your philanthropies involved? Because if otherwise, it's just going to be a few dozen $1 million, and then it will eventually be forgotten and won't have the impact it needs. So, I think you have demonstrated that you can pull together, create a strategy, and start implementing it. It's about how can you now make it scientifically and IP, make sure the IP is there, make sure that the technology is there, make sure that the collaboration is there, and then above all, make sure that it has some plan for financial sustainability over time. Enough time and enough scale to make a difference. One thing I did want to mention that we haven't, our whole thing is also, can we quit the small ball? The idea here is to get to a little larger scale so we can actually have some possibility of nudging a place onto a different trajectory. And I think we spent a lot of time with $100,000, awards, important, but they're not going to change the trajectory.
Yeah, that's a great place to end. So
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thanks a lot. That's good. Thank you.
All right. So as we advertised this, we said that Mayor Johnson would be here, and unfortunately, he had to be called away due to an official office action of his office. But we did not tell you that we were very excited to have Governor Evers here, and so Governor Evers just arrived, and I'd like to bring him to the stage to talk to us. And as he's coming up, I'm just going to give some kudos. Obviously, you've been very involved in helping in securing of the Tech Hub, and we really appreciate that support, but also the forethought that you've had around AI. I participate on the Legislative Study Committee for AI right now, and also I'm part of our national association, and we're held up in Wisconsin as the national example of how to do this right. To study it, we had the very first governor's task force on AI. There's now many of them that are being replicated across the country. So I want to thank you for your forethought and really pulling us and really helping us see the future. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning, everybody. Speaking of AI, I just have to give you a quick off-the-cuff comment. I was at my annual physical the other day, and my physician, who is a little bit younger than me by maybe 5 years, so he's up there, and he was when we were ending up the conversation, he was entering it on his computer. For the company he works for, but then he also had a phone right in front of him, that was taking that information and going directly to Epic and their AI work. And so you think about just that kind of common thing that, data that comes directly from me. Now it's going directly into the Epic's AI work. So regardless of whether we understand it or not, it's here. So good morning, everybody. It's great to be here today to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. Since 2019, and you know the history, the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition has worked to build an innovative, diverse, and inclusive, those are still good words, tech ecosystem here in Wisconsin. Incredibly, the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition has grown from having only 6 founding members in 2019 to now collaborating with 135 organizations, contributing to areas spanning from education, nonprofits, and community organizations. Over the past 5 years, the coalition, through its programming and mentorships, and networking and community advocacy, you've uplifted local talent so that we can keep Wisconsin innovative workers where they belong, right here in Wisconsin. And it's thanks to the hard work of partners like you that Wisconsin was selected as only one of 12 states in the nation to be a U.S. regional hub, tech hub. And that is really huge, folks. The state's designation as a tech hub puts Wisconsin center stage as we work to build an economy and a workforce that is ready to meet the demands of the 21st century. I had the opportunity to work with Senator Baldwin and the Biden administration from the very beginning to bring this important designation to Wisconsin. And we've collaborated with governors from across the country to urge Congress to pass the CHIPS Act, which I know we have to be very diligent about because the present, or the soon-to-be present administration is looking to undo the CHIPS Act. And working with WEDC to bring together Wisconsin's BioHealth Tech Hub Consortium and secured $7.5 million for a federal grant match to implement the Tech Hub and secure our designation. The BioHealth Tech Club unlocks $49 million to grow the state's personalized medicine, and I think that's what I was experiencing the other day, and biohealth sector, and is projected to bring more than 30,000 jobs, over 111,000 indirect jobs, that is attributed to the Tech Hub, and $9 billion in economic development in the first 10 years to Wisconsin. And yes, that's billion with a B, folks. Coupled with big announcements like Microsoft's $3.3 billion investment in an AI data center campus in Mount Pleasant, now is an incredibly exciting time for new business development here in Wisconsin and in Southeast Wisconsin especially. Microsoft project obviously is expected to bring in 2,000 union construction jobs, but also provide long-term employment for over the next several years. Along with this investment, Microsoft announced the establishment of the manufacturing-focused AI co-innovation lab right here in Milwaukee at the UW-Milwaukee campus. This lab will connect our manufacturers, entrepreneurs, and establish companies like Microsoft's AI, or with Microsoft's AI experts and developers so that they can have expanded resources to design and prototype AI solutions to improve and accelerate their work. There are only 6 other facilities operated by Microsoft worldwide, with only 2 in the US. And the lab is expected to provide at least 60 manufacturers a year with guidance on implementing AI technology to grow their businesses. As I said, these huge high-tech milestones are due in part because of the advocacy and leadership of partners like the Milwaukee Tech Hub, creating a great environment for technological and entrepreneurial growth within the city and throughout the state. This Milwaukee Tech Hub is essential for creating connections within the ecosystems we have in Wisconsin and at the same time promoting continued innovation and leadership. So I thank you for that, and I know you're looking at what the future looks like, but I think it's so important that you continue to do the great work that you do. And thank you for all the good work, but before I go, I'd like to present a certificate on behalf of my office for this organization and its partnership with us for 5 innovative years of success, and congratulations for that. I'd like to hand it off to Kathy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.
I would like to bring up Joe Peschel now, who's going to take us to the next part of it. Joe's been engaged with the mission of the coalition from the very start. As we started the 4M program, I think we met my very first week, and the FUSE program, and has now joined us. We are so fortunate to have him join us in January as our Director of Engagement. So I'm going to turn the program over to you. Thank you.
Kathy, we also get our suits made at the same place, clearly. That was an accident this morning. I walked in, I was like, we're wearing the same thing. Oh no. Everyone, I'm Joe Peschel. It's so great to see you. As Kathy mentioned, I'm the Director of Engagement here at the Milwaukee Tech Hub. I spent the last 15 years of my career helping grow tech, startup, and talent networks here in the region. And it's one reason why I'm so excited to bring up our panel for today. And I realize I'm also missing the clicker, so pretend that we see all the faces on the next slide right here. I will give a shout out to Kathy to hit that. There we go. Thanks, tech team. You got it. There it is. Thanks. Got the clicker. We're all ready. So I'm going to bring up our panel. We have 5 really great guests. I'll point out that Missy from the WDC could not be here. She fell ill after coming back from some travel. But let's get Bala from Microsoft, Mara from MCW, Dan from Baird, Dr. John Walls from MSOE, and Blanca from IC Stars up onto our stage here. One reason why I'm so excited to have this lightning round conversation with these folks is that they continue to inspire and motivate me in the work that we do at the Milwaukee Tech Hub. We're going to be able to celebrate with them their stories of progress and success and collaboration. They each bring a different lens on the tech ecosystem, which is going to provide a really interesting perspective for a lot of us. I think we have our own stories, we have our own areas that we understand and are knowledgeable about, but with these 5 different perspectives, we're going to be able to see a nice snapshot of the entire tech ecosystem. So we can recognize that tech is a very broad term, and it reaches into all industries and all sectors. And each of you on the stage comes with that unique lens. So we'll start with Dan on the end here, and we'll get rolling with some introductions. So Dan, quick intro. But also, as you reflect on these past 5 years of growth, what's a moment of progress or celebration that you want to share with all of us from that perspective that you're bringing to this?
Sure, thanks, Joe. So Dan Renoir, I am 26 years at Baird. So those of you who don't know, Baird Financial Institution, investment bank, we have about 5,500 employees, over $3 billion of revenue. Just to give you some perspective, I joined the firm 26 years ago. We were doing less than $300 million of revenue. So the firm has grown a great deal, proudly headquartered here in Milwaukee, very Wisconsin proud. I spent most of my careers on the equities and the investment side. So more than 20 years in equity research, actually originally, which was really my start in Silicon Valley, getting exposed to tech hubs nationally, going back to the late 90s. And then more recently, I now work in strategy at the firm. So I essentially make connections across the firm. And one of my roles is helping the Wisconsin innovation economy. So I'm a board member of the MKE Tech Hub Coalition, and I advise a number of the venture funds in the state. One of my sort of reflections on that question of what one thing would you point to, I don't know that I have one thing to point to. I've got a lot of things to point to. So I used to watch a lot of TV when I was a kid. Strangely, I don't watch TV anymore, but I used to watch a lot of TV. And there was a commercial I remember from a company called BASF, which I think is a German company, and it kind of reminds me of the Tech Hub because their tagline was, we don't make a lot of the things that you use, we make a lot of things you use better. And I sort of think of the Tech Hub as that, which is, Kathy mentioned earlier all the different venture funds that have been formed and are forming, this sort of the grant work. Sometimes the Tech Hub's label is there, but I know there's a lot of work that goes into a lot of these initiatives. And so that's probably how I would say it's sort of like the energy policy. It's all of the above, and I think that's my sort of reaction and reflection of how the Tech Hub is contributing, what I would react to.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. If you want to pass the mic, we got two that we'll use. Blanca, intro, and what is your shout out?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Blanca Gonzalez, and I am the Executive Director for IC Stars Milwaukee. We are a workforce development and an IT internship program. And so what we do is we take underrepresented talent, anyone with a high school diploma or a GED or some college, and we put them through an immersive 16-week program, 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. And what we do is we find talent, we train talent, and we put talent to work. So within these 5 years, what has been exciting for us, right, is that Kathy said she started right around the pandemic. My first cohort was 2 weeks before the pandemic, and boom, there we went in. And it was in a moment of uncertainty. We didn't really know what to expect. But what was awesome, to what Kathy mentioned, is that during that time, the silver lining of this is that we were all forced to really get to know each other in a virtual world. And so we were able to build relationships. And so a lot of inclusivity really happened during that time. A lot of collaboration happened across all of the markets. And so for us, celebrating with the Milwaukee Tech Hub and being such a huge resource to our interns has meant a lot of growth, a lot of upskilling, a lot of conversations, and a lot of social capital that they have gained. And so it's also meant employment. And that's a really big deal about finding the talent here in Milwaukee and keeping it here in Milwaukee. So
I want to give a quick shout out. I think IC Stars does an amazing job with this program that they call High Tea. It's a great way to connect with all of the learners going through the program, and it's just a really great way to make some connections. So if you have not yet volunteered to do a high tech session, or high tea, session, those are really fun.
And this is why I love Joe Peschel. This is awesome. What an amazing plug. That's great. I'll take this.
It's on. You should be good.
It's on. All right. Good morning. Mara Lord, Chief Strategy and Growth Officer for the Medical College of Wisconsin. The other role I'm holding now is I'm a consortium member with the Wisconsin BioHealth Tech Hub. I'm also a project lead from the EDA funding that came through to the Wisconsin BioHealth Tech Hub. So my shout out is really obvious. It is for the Wisconsin BioHealth Tech Hub. That's gotten a lot of time in the sun this morning, but it's significant, and I want to share why. We came together, 18 different organizations across the state came together to build this consortium, and that took an immense amount of collaboration. And that collaboration started with a couple of organizations, including Milwaukee Tech Hub and BioForward in particular in Wisconsin. And they were, that's the word I'm looking for, they were conveners that enabled us to build deeper collaborations to make this happen, right? So that was built over the past 5 years with Milwaukee Tech Hub, BioForward, a couple of others. But then, through those collaborations, we recognized that we're a state that invents, we build, and we deploy. It's really unique, is what we've found. We can dream up ideas, we can build them, and we can distribute them. And often in other economies, you have specialization in one of those areas, but not necessarily across the entire spectrum. And we were hearing from the EDA that that's really special here. And we talk about the manufacturing base that we have in Wisconsin, but that manufacturing base is beginning to pivot into a supply chain that is supporting biohealth and biotech. And what we found is biohealth and biotech, not found, data is showing, and the BioForward data just came out a month ago, that we've experienced a 25% growth in jobs in the biohealth biotech sector. 25% growth in jobs in 5 years. And M7, they're coming out with data, I think, in the next couple of weeks that's going to demonstrate a very similar growth trajectory for Southeast Wisconsin. And it's really exciting, and it's an emerging field. And so when we put forth to the EDA that we are a state that invents, builds, and deploys, and we are leading in biohealth and biotech, and we are going to lead in personalized medicine. It's because we have clusters in this state that we can build from.
That's awesome. Congrats. That's super cool. Dr. Walls, let's hear a quick intro from you, and what's your shout out?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. For those of you who haven't met, my name is John Walls, and for the past 8 years or so, I've served as the president of Milwaukee School of Engineering. One of the great areas for progress that I'd like to talk about is what all the different universities in the region are doing to help with companies or upskilling in this area of digital technology. And there's a lot that's going on. I'll just mention a few. So UW-Milwaukee and Marquette have the Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute. UW-Milwaukee has a Connected Systems Institute and a Microsoft AI Co-Innovation Lab that the governor mentioned. Waukesha County Technical College has opened up an applied AI lab. And of course, with these institutes and the centers, there's also a range of educational offerings that go along with those. It's not just the centers of the institute. My own institution, MSOE, we have done a lot. We've opened up a brand new computational science hall. It is complete with an NVIDIA supercomputer that we have named Rosie. Rosie is the most popular person on my campus, okay? But in addition to that, we have created graduate programs, undergraduate degree programs, minors, graduate certificates, and more recently, professional education opportunities. We have a goal to be a leader in applied AI education. I also want to give a shout out to the Fuse Boot Camp, which was mentioned a few times today. Fuse is really led by the Milwaukee Tech Hub. It is a summer boot camp to get high school kids and college kids interested in AI, and a number of universities participate in Fuse, including my own. It is a great success. So all of these innovations add up to tens of millions of dollars in both private and public investment in our area institutions to, again, not only help companies leverage these technologies, but help build a digital tech-ready workforce for our region. And I think that's a significant accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walls. And yes, Rosie is quite beautiful. Yeah, go over and check her out. Bala, would love to hear your perspective on all of this. Quick intro and your shout out.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Nice to meet all of you. Thank you for being here. So my name is Bala. I'm going to short my name, so I don't want to confuse everyone. So I'm from Microsoft. We are a very small startup company, if you have not known. We have been only here for only 50 years. So why am I here? We have been doing some exciting things with Wisconsin pretty lately. But before this, I've personally been involved in, I know Jennifer is sitting there, and I can see her, yeah. So in CSI, so we started this about six years ago with a partnership with Rockwell about how can we take AI in the applied sense. So I do a lot of AI work on a day-to-day life. My job is to go to other companies and show them how they can actually use AI in their existing business, what they're doing, because AI is just a tool. I don't think it's not going to replace any of them. So, but our job is how do we figure out AI and human coexist and make it better, right? So that means there is always a science aspect to it, which is what the universities and all these colleges are driving. But then there is also an aspect of where applied science is. Take the tool and go to the end user, the last mile. How do we achieve that last mile? That's what Connected Systems Institute was, and we partnered with a couple of Rockwell, V Energies, and a few other manufacturers. We started an institute, and we actually have a real plant where students can come and learn, which the focus was in manufacturing. That was going on for the past 5 years, and then we thought, okay, what should we do next? And this is where we want to build a manufacturing AI COE in Wisconsin. So that's how the AI Co-Innovation Lab started that you probably heard from a lot of people. So that's how the original idea is okay, now we have AI. Before we used to have industrial IoT. How can we take it to the last mile? That was the only intention that we are going after. So we are working with Buckley and all to drive that. And the lab will serve for Wisconsin and other customers as where you can come and innovate and get some ideas to see how we can infuse AI. That could be as AI, I don't know if you know this by now, it's a general purpose technology, especially with the generative AI. So it's not just that tech folks have to use it. Anyone can use and be very productive, including myself. I use it every day. So how can we take that and start building a new product? Or do you want to innovate your process? How do you want to save time to do something else? I spend a lot of time doing paperwork. Why do I have to do it, right? Those are the things that we are working on. And as you know, we are working with Tech Hub and few other organizations across Wisconsin. We wanted to bring back manufacturing into this state back. We want to innovate more in the AI space so we can be very competitive and be the best of the best. So that's the goal. So thank you for having us here.
We just celebrated 5 really great stories. Why don't we give a round of applause for a lot of hard work that went into all of this? And we all know that the hard work is not done alone, and a theme for today has been collaboration and building on this change and these opportunities that we are experiencing. And over the last 5 years, change has occurred. Bala, why don't we'll go back down the line this way. What would you highlight as the thing that has changed within our ecosystem? How are we functioning differently today than we were maybe 5 years ago?
So I think the first one is like the awareness. People are now getting to know that, okay, we need to change, especially from the AI perspective. I can say like, there were a lot of fear on like, hey, what is this AI gonna do? Is it gonna come and take the jobs out? Or how the school systems are gonna teach? Because, in school, like, if my daughter goes, if I ask her to do anything, she'll go write it in ChatGPT and come and read it to me. So as the technology is progressing, how we actually getting used to it is the biggest thing that I see right now. That's on the human level, but that's also on the corporate level, the companies, how they are looking to change. I see that has been a little change now from what we used to be. We have long ways to go, obviously. But that's a good thing because our universities and all are now, they started actually doing AI courses, which is phenomenal. And I also see the enterprise, like the company ecosystems are also saying like, okay, enough is enough. Why don't we look at it and see like how we'll start using this, right? We don't want to go boil the ocean at all. That's not our intention, but at least they're willing to start very small, which I see a huge, huge step, at least coming from the high-tech industry. For me, that is a big, big step, right? So
you've got one of the leaders right next to you, Dr. Walls. What do you think has changed over the last 5 years?
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with the education theme. I think that one thing that has happened a lot over the past 5 years is the collaboration that has happened between area universities and other partners. And I think what Mark used the term an unnatural act. It doesn't happen by itself, but it takes work, but it's a good thing. I think our region is indeed fortunate to have a really diverse and strong set of institutions of higher education spanning the gamut. And we've recognized that we can do more if we work together than if we compete. And so, example, a number of years ago, we came together to form an organization called HERA, Higher Education Regional Alliance. It is a diverse set of institutions, public and private, 2-year and 4-year, all coming together, working with various organizations in the city, tech organizations like the Tech Hub, and really trying to say, how do we address the workforce needs of the region? And it's been very successful. There's a lot of great things that have happened because of it. I will give you an example of one. Just very recently, our university, MSOE, partnered with the Waukesha County Technical College and the Tech Hub and some other organizations to put together a proposal to create what we call the AI Innovation Lab. And that would have been very difficult to do individually, but by working together, it is a much, much stronger partnership, a much, much stronger proposal that was put together. And again, we recognize that collaboration among us is so important we can do so much more together. And I think there's a lot that will continue to grow out of this collaboration between, again, institutions and area organizations focused on these topics. Thank you.
Let's go. How about you, Mara? What do you think?
So I'll speak from biohealth again, biotech. The definition of a catalyst is that you bring unique substances together to create something new, right? And I think this past 5 years, we have demonstrated that acting catalytically, right? Acting as catalyst for something bigger and better is how all boats rise, to use yet another metaphor. And I'm going to use an example in biohealth, biotech. There is an emerging field called theranostics. Has anyone heard of theranostics? Okay, good. I see a few. Great. So theranostics brings together a therapy that is injectable with diagnostics, which is largely imaging. And bringing those fields together is unique. And it takes all kinds of thinkers and all kinds of companies to say, how do we deliver this best for patients? And it's an emerging field. You are going to see this hit really hard over the next couple of years. But it is different fields, industries working together to catalyze a totally new outcome. So to me, the difference is that we are catalyzing differently together. It's good. Oh, you've got your microphone.
Yeah, I think on the same theme, and that was awesome explained. I think this ecosystem, what it has shown is that there is agility, right? And that this is a community of problem solving. And so what I've seen and celebrated is that we're including more educational institutions. We are involving more workforce development in, programs like ourselves, like IC Stars, right, that are better preparing, right, an opportunity for different pathways. And so by being able to celebrate together, work together, so much more is going to be possible. And I think this is one of the more prouder moments that I have with our tech ecosystem is that we definitely support each other and want to work together and use our resources.
So I'm going to take a slightly different tack in terms of the progress I've seen in the last 5 years. So I spent most of my career in New York, in Silicon Valley, London, everywhere but Wisconsin. And I started in this role, I don't know where Kathy is, but I think I was her second meeting, and it was my first meeting in this new strategy role. It was right before the pandemic, and so it was kind of one of these, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do in my role. What are you going to do in your role? She's like, I'm not entirely sure either. So we've done a lot to sort of, as we said, the theme of collaboration, which is super important from not just from Baird, but all of the corporates and all of the partners that are in the ecosystem. How can we collaborate more, and how can we create that environment of collaboration? But I'm an adopted son, so I grew up in Seattle, so I'm not from here. I've been here for 26 years. I love it here, but I'm going to talk about two cities, and go back to what Mark said earlier about confidence. So growing up in Seattle in the 70s, you thought I just dyed this beard gray, but growing up in the 70s, Seattle was not what Seattle as now. Those of you who've been to Seattle, like, amazing city, it's awesome. Growing up in Seattle in the 70s, whenever you went anywhere, into the 80s, way into the 80s, even into the 90s, people would say, oh, it rains a lot there. That was the only reaction you got, literally, the only reaction you got, okay? Now, from Milwaukee, going back 25 years, I'd go to New York or go visit clients, wherever. Oh, you're Milwaukee. Gets cold there a lot, huh? Okay. Austin, Texas. Those of you know Austin, Texas. Some of you may have heard of South by Southwest. Some of you have traveled there. It's a really cool city. Lots of tech, okay, Michael Dell started that thing in the 80s. Here's what Austin was known for. It gets really hot in the summer. That's what people would say. It's a small town, gets really hot in the summer. People don't say that anymore. People don't say that about Seattle, right? The first 5 things people say Seattle, before they'll talk about rain. People don't even talk about the rain in Seattle anymore. Trust me, it still rains. I get out there a lot. And trust me, it's still very hot in the summer in Austin, Texas, but people don't talk about that either. So what I have seen in this city in the last 5 years, give some credit to Giannis. Kathy mentioned Giannis. The Bucks winning the championship was a big deal. And some of what I've seen in this town is the recognition here that this is actually a cool place to live. It's a cool place, and that is super important because Seattle, back in the 70s, and Austin in the sort of 80s, 90s, Similarly, kind of a cool vibe. Cost of living was reasonable. Lots of really, really nice people, and it had the sort of ingredients to really grow. And now we have a mayor. I was going to give him a shout out, but he's not here. We have a mayor who is pro-growth. We have a mayor who wants to grow, and so I think that the confidence that this region and the state can have about it is an amazing place to live. It really is an amazing place to be. And when I have outsiders come here, they're always blown away by what we have. They're like, "Gosh, I wish I didn't have my whole life, in New York or wherever, because what you have here is really, truly unbelievable." So, and then the last thing I'll say along the progress paradigm is the whole reflection of things that we can do that bring outsiders here is really important. At the Tech Hub, on the board level, going back 2 or 3 years, we said, one thing in one organization and one thing we need to support is Summerfest Tech, because Summerfest Tech has the potential to be South by Southwest. It's centered all around the big music festival, which a lot of us know, and people from Chicago and other parts of the country will come in for that, but we can really help build that thing. It has grown methodically over the last 6 or 7 years, but I think you're going to expect to hear more from not just the Tech Hub, but just about Summerfest Tech as a way to bring in a lot more outsiders to sort of get and see and feel how cool and how awesome not just Milwaukee, but the whole state is.
You heard it from Dan, we're cool. All right, I'm gonna keep us on time. So we're gonna continue with this lightning round theme, all right? But you each only get a sentence. I'll allow 2 if you need it, okay? But today, it's all been about celebrating our progress, building on our momentum, collaborating, even though it might be an unnatural act. We're doing it really well. As you all have heard from our speakers so far, listened to one another, what is your takeaway on all of this? What's your call to action to the people in this audience right now? Dan, we'll rifle right through everyone here.
My call to action is just, you're here, but engage. Like when you meet a startup founder, when you meet a new venture capitalist, when you meet anybody who's in the innovation economy, figure out how you can help them. I guarantee you there's somebody in your network that could be helpful to whoever you're talking to. So that is my call to action.
My call to action would be to continue to invest in technology, but continue to invest in the people behind that technology. That's going to take us far. That's what separates us from other markets. And I think that there's always something to be supportive about being a Milwaukee native. If you've just gotten here, celebrate it, stay here.
I would say be a convener. So convene others to create a larger whole.
I just want to say that the universities and the colleges in the region have the desire and the resources to help and use them. We want the area to be strong. We want to do everything we can to help, and we want to work with you. And we have a lot to offer beyond just educating great students. Of course, that's obvious, but there's much more that we can do, and I hope you take advantage of that.
Innovate, innovate, innovate. Because AI has so much potential. So use a facility, you see where everybody's connected. Get to know the technology, use it. Let's make this applied AI Silicon Valley for the country, if you may. So if you can achieve that from 5 or 10 years from now, that will be the best. So that's it.
Okay, friends, we are catalytic, we are agile, we support one another, and we're also cool. Let's give a round of applause to our cool panel. Thank you all. I'll ask you all to take a seat, and as we have a special surprise here, I'd like to bring up Molly Mulroy, Chief Administrative Officer at WC Energy Group, also our board chair at the MKE Tech Hub Coalition. Kathy and the team as well, you're gonna have to get up here too. We've got a cool little surprise. Many of you know that news that Kathy has announced her upcoming retirement. So Molly, I wanna bring you up here while I go do a quick costume change.
Costume change. We have something to look forward to. What's going to happen here? So really, thanks, first of all, everybody for being here today. Just having all of you present, being part of this community, being part of this celebration, it just speaks volumes about really who we are as a city. And, you know, as we're talking about being conveners and as we look across the room, you know, one of the things that I think is most special about Milwaukee is Small-Walkie, right? I mean, we all know everybody through somebody else, and there's something really, really powerful in that network. and in that connection. So really hoping that this, is the beginning of some additional connections that we can make because we're all better for it. So again, we've heard a lot about progress. We've heard about collaboration and growth really across our tech ecosystem this morning and over the last 5 years. And before we start sharing more about what's next for the organization, which we've obviously been teeing up, we wanted to just take a moment to share our sincere gratitude to Kathy Henrich, the CEO of Milwaukee Tech Hub. She has been our leader, and as we've heard, she is retiring later this spring. But this moment really is to celebrate her leadership, her dedication, her accomplishments with this organization. And for Kathy, as you guys all well know, if you've spent any time with her, this has really been a mission for her, not just a job. So to show our appreciation for that, the team has really put together something very special and created a happy 5 years basket and created some things that are very particular to Milwaukee and particular to this mission itself. So first off, in it, Kathy will find AI created wine. Hopefully no hallucinations made their way into the recipe, but we always got to double check that. Some Milwaukee Tech Hub wine glasses, and also a bouquet of flowers to pair nicely with all of it. Lastly, everyone who knows Kathy knows that she is always on the move, whether it's going to meetings, whether it's being part of the city, across the region and across the state. So you and the rest of the team have some custom shoes and custom kicks to show off here. And really continue the adventures through the spring all together. So thank you for everything, Kathy.
All right. Well, I'll just say it's been a man's pleasure, and I think I just want to thank everyone, including our partners who also are a big part of our team. And, when I took this on, this is a mission. And I am going to cry because that's all sorry. I do care deeply. But those that know me also know I have more to do. And I'm excited about the next chapter. And I'm very confident in where we are as an organization that we can successfully transition this into a next leader who can continue to grow it, et cetera. And so very excited. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for the board's partnership. I'm very fortunate to have had this experience, and just stay tuned. I got one more big thing in my life, so thank you.
Got your flowers. And Molly, as our board chair, I'd also like to thank you for being such a strong champion and a consistent voice in the progress that we're all celebrating today. And as we look forward to what's next for the Milwaukee Tech Hub, as an organization, it was the support of Molly and the rest of the board that enabled us and empowered us to go through a strategic planning process over the last 9 months that prioritized member engagement, community engagement, inclusive listening, and co-creation for our continued vision. We hosted 15 formal listening sessions and many more informal ones, engaging with over 200 people in our community. And you see the Post-it notes for flying and the whiteboard discussions were all there, right? 100 different organizations from across the ecosystem being represented. And it really helped us learn the needs, the priorities of our ecosystem. And so I want to hand it over to Molly to share a little bit about what we learned through all of this.
Thanks, Joe. So as noted, we had some very deep conversations with a lot of the folks in this room. And through that, we gathered insights, we noted themes, and really developed a stronger sense of our offering for and in the region. Milwaukee Tech Hub, as we noted, really stands out as an organization that actively listens and connects across sections and sectors. We scan the horizons for new trends and leverage our network to bring leadership to our community. And we really do stand out as an organization that not only strives for daily wins, but also invests in our long-term transformative impact. So one of our favorite listening session exercises revealed the variety of roles, and we've made reference to roles several times throughout the course of our discussion this morning. But really, it was what our members and our community saw us playing that was most important. That ranged everything from convener to navigator to storyteller and amplifier. But one thing became clear, and that was that the organization definitely acts as an epicenter for this community, and the people are turning to us as a key resource in economic development and also network connection.
Bringing all of this back to our focus on that stronger tech talent and jobs pipeline, we identified that we really have two spaces that we can play and focus on, and that is the opportunity and the reality to build faster, where we bring people together. We offer programs and opportunities to connect with one another. We experiment, we pivot, we adapt and learn. Remember, we are that agile community. And we get those wins and we tell the stories. And then we can also pair that with the opportunity to go further in doing that together. We can think and act in that long-term outlook. We can pursue those transformational and catalytic change projects, and we can foster that collaboration that brings in outside investment to our region. These are the big things. Done together can do even bigger things.
So really, this balanced portfolio approach will guide the growth and success of Milwaukee Tech Hub and our region. The real impact being our ability to outpace the rest of the market, and we've talked about that today, and thank you for your insights, to really outpace the rest of the market and double when it comes to our job talent pipeline. We know the positive effects that this creates. It's economic prosperity and wealth, stronger communities, business growth, and an ability to tackle the real problems in the world. And lastly, to build off the themes of Mark Muro's words, the Tech Hub Coalition focuses on place-based economic development, leveraging advanced technologies for our local sectors. And we know we've got a lot of opportunity there when we think about manufacturing and some of the investments that are being made here. Our line partnerships across our members and other organizations like MMAC ensures that we're able to build on our momentum and the strategic vision is ultimately realized.
So probably use the mic. Yep. We so appreciate everyone being here today and joining us in this celebration and this opportunity to think about what is next. And I know it has been a lot of listening to some really fantastic stories and some great moments of gratitude and such, but I also think we have a little bit of time at the end here to connect with one another. And so if anyone's been in a room with me before, I know, you're like, okay, we're gonna do something now, right? And so here's our chance to do something. And so we will, kind of have a little moment to make this connection and have this discussion. So I'm going to give you all a thought prompt here and a couple of reflective questions to consider and share with one another at your table, all right? So let's go ahead and imagine, right? Momentum, progress, an object in motion stays in motion. There's a law of thermodynamics in there, I think. Someone smarter than me is going to know that one. Imagine 5 years of continued growth. Our tech talent pipelines are getting stronger, more jobs, our innovation ecosystem is thriving even further, right? So continuing on this growth. Some questions for you all to reflect on here. How has your work or your life changed? How has Milwaukee's reputation changed? What are some of these milestones that we have achieved together? So I want you to just take a moment and reflect on this and share with one another at your table, because ultimately, our final prompt here, right, that call to action, we heard it from our panelists, but we want to individualize that as well, right? What can you, or if you're reading this, what can I do to help grow this tech ecosystem? And from here, just because we thought it'd be a really cool opportunity to kind of capture some of these thoughts, scanning that QR code will go to a simple form and it'll plug things in and we'll get a bit of a feed to capture what you all think here. So tell you what, we're gonna turn on a little bit of background music. We're gonna let you connect with one another, have a little bit of this conversation, and then we'll have one final moment to say, let's go team, all right? Does that work for everybody? Yeah? I can't hear you. Okay, yes, excellent, we're gonna do it. Thank you, Mara.
And I just want to take one last opportunity since I am up here, just to thank the team, both Kathy and this entire team, for putting together this entire event. This takes a lot of work, and as always, just incredibly delivered, and their attention to detail is amazing. So thank you for all of your efforts and appreciate everyone's work.
But with our last minute here, I'm going to hand things over to Kathy to wrap us up on our session today.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you all for coming out. Some people thought this was pretty elaborate ruse for me to get people to come to an event to say I was going to retire, but truly, I do thank you all. And I want to ask you, as a parting gift, there would be no better parting gift than you all do these things. I really want to see this region excel over the next 5, 10, 15 years. And we have some things on the tables to help you get started. There are immediate opportunities. In fact, Quentin was up here earlier with Hour of Tech to get involved in telling the story of Milwaukee as a tech region. We're still looking for a couple more stories to include in that. So take a look. We really want, I mean, there is so much that potential we have as a region. And I think Anthony made a great question, like, where do we go next? We are early. But if we all do these things, and we all collaborate, and we all commit to that, there is, sorry, I will start. But you guys, we can make this thing great for this generation and next. So thank you all. I'm so glad you're here.